Hello, everyone. All right, I apologize if I look a little disheveled, but I did kind of just have breakfast and woke up probably a couple hours ago. Got up to do some exercises, ate my breakfast, so I am probably mostly with clear thoughts regarding the Superman movie yesterday. So I put my crypto shirt back on. Don't worry, it's clean. All right. I wanted to make sure this was recording. Let me start again. Yeah, I thought I was recording and I was not, clearly. I am ready to go and talk about the Superman movie that I went to see yesterday with my family. It took us a little bit. We waited this long, about 10, 11 days after the movie premiere, because we were waiting to all go together as a family for one of my nephew's birthday. So yeah, it was quite fun, and it's a pretty large family, so there were an array of different opinions, mostly positive. I would say 90% positive. I want to talk about the vibe of the movie first and all the non-spoilery stuff. I'll let you know in advance when I start talking spoiler stuff for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, although I imagine at this point most of you have. But for anyone who is doubting to go see the movie, I think this is worth an experience to go see in IMAX. Visually, this movie is beautiful. There is a lot of activity going on. It's a very visually active movie, very colorful, very entertaining. Funny at times, which one of my kids said was unexpected. I'll get into that a little bit more into detail later on. And all in all, I think everybody's performance was incredible and up to par with what we are used to seeing from James Gunn. The movie starts off with a lot of activity. It literally feels, I had heard this before, and they're not wrong, that it literally feels like you're opening up a comic book. You know, I'll get into a little bit more into detail with that, but it does reminisce a little bit of how you feel when you open up a comic book in the middle of something going on with not a lot of backstory, but you just kind of have to start informing yourself as you go, as you turn the pages. So that is what it felt like. The music, the score was amazing. That's always important in any movie, TV show. Music can give you a lot of really great cues, and there were a lot of those. Of course, while there was homage to the John Williams score, which gave me goosebumps whenever I would hear the little melody that we all know and love so much. The James Gunn score, well, not his score, but from the movie, I would say held its own, because it had, while it was reminiscing of other scores, and you know, you even heard a little bit of a Hans Zimmer thing going on in there with the drum beats and everything, it held its own. You know, it does stand out as the movie score from the James Gunn Superman movie, and it was beautiful. It had emotional cues. It had some amazing moments during the action sequences. It was amazing. And as far as the performance of all of the actors, let me start with David Corenswet. He does remind quite a bit of Christopher Reeve's style of acting. You know, I know they both came from Juilliard and had quite similar approaches. I think I've seen interviews of his, and I've seen him interviewed by Will Reeve, Christopher's son. While he did draw a little bit of inspiration from him, I also thought he kind of like gave it his own twist. You know, I definitely saw some things. My sister and I both agreed that it did, you know, give us chills, because it did feel like we were watching Christopher Reeve on screen again at some moments. He did have his own approach and his own feel and his own personality towards the character. He very much owned the role. Rachel Brosnahan, I love her as Lois Lane. I thought she was very strong. She held her own. She didn't feel like, you know, she was just an appendix hanging on to Superman or anything like that. As in Lois Lane fashion, she felt like, like I said, hold her own throughout the movie. She was intelligent, witty, with a great heart and a different perspective, a different view of things compared to Superman, which was really interesting. I'll get into that a little bit more later on. The dynamic between the two of them and the chemistry between the two of them was really awesome. Nicholas Hoult, I gotta say, I know he inspired his Lex Luthor on Gene Hackman and Michael Rosenbaum, and while I sensed a little bit of that in his performance, he also held his own. I think he owned the Lex Luthor character, and quite frankly, besides David and Rachel, he's my favorite character of the entire movie. I thought he did an incredible job. I believed his anger, his hatred, his angst, his frustration. There was a lot of that going on. And next, Crypto. I love me some dogs. I love dogs. I love animals in general, but while I don't have a dog right now, I plan to have one in the future, perhaps adopt one. And I hear the adoption rate is going up because of this movie, which makes me really glad. But I always find it hilarious how these things kind of turn into trends. Yeah, I thought the CG, because I know Crypto is mostly CG, or I think mocap in certain moments. I thought it was an incredible job done by the visual effects team. I had no gripe with the movement or the texture of the fur or the look on his face. I thought he was a very interesting character all on his own, with his own personality, and I appreciated that. Yeah, and I think everybody, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, all of the actors in it were, amazing. I don't think anybody felt extra or like they didn't have important moments or held their own in any of their roles or their parts or their dialogue. I thought they all apported a something special to the movie, right? A special dynamic with Superman, and the interactions with Lois at times were very interesting as well. I don't want to get into that too much right now because that is spoiler section, but all in all, I'd say most of us walked out of the movie theater feeling a sense of hope. I'm honestly going to say I did feel hopeful when I came out of watching the movie Man of Steel. I don't hate on that version. Unlike some other people, I did enjoy Man of Steel. There were some moments that I think were very rescuable when it comes to the hope factor. I don't have a problem with the moment where he kills Zod, honestly, like some people do, because I understood that choice. But, Zack tends to film very dark, very visually dark, and very dark themed movies, and that's okay. That's just his style. This is a different style movie, and I did feel though, and my sister said the same thing, walking out of there with like the feel that we had when we saw the Christopher Reeve movie for the first time, which was, a lot of love, a lot of hope, a sense of optimism. It's a very uplifting movie, and while it does have, funny moments and moments of, emotional dread and the stakes get really high, you come out with a sense of, everything's gonna be okay. Basically put one foot in front of the other. I'll get into that, and yeah, because that's a very special moment in the movie. Basically taking it one day at a time. So yeah, all in all, it's a very positive movie, and if you're looking for that, to see positivity and feel hope and feel love from a movie, any movie, not just a superhero movie, I do recommend watching this. And like I said, in theaters, if you can't do IMAX, that's okay, but try to see it on a big screen. Because while I do plan on watching this again probably when it comes out on streaming, because I have other things I want to watch in theaters, I think it's you know, it is worth it to experience it the first time on a big screen. I was very happy that we did that yesterday, and I think most of the crew that I went through agrees. Anyway, now I'm going to get into the spoilery section, so fair warning for those of you who haven't seen the movie. Like I said, I think most of you have seen it already, but just in case, I don't want to leave anybody out. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so spoilery section. All right, so as we open the movie, as I was mentioning, it does feel like a comic book when you're watching it. Like literally you're flipping over the pages. You know, it starts explaining to you that he's only been at this for 3 years, while Superman Clark Kal-El has been on Earth since he was a baby. And we see that towards the end when you see flashbacks of him as a child and as a baby with Ma and Pa Kent, right? Who I forgot to mention were so good. So good. The actors were amazing. I truly felt that they, you know, they were Clark's parents, that they loved him and were protective of him and would do anything to make sure he was okay. And even though they were aging quite considerably, they were just ready to be there for their son and to make sure he was okay in that moment when Mr. Terrific and Lois bring him back to the Kent farm and he's on the bed and they're both like on top of him, like almost in tears and making sure he's okay. And I love Ma Kent and Pa Kent. I love that he's like the emotional one and that he was almost in tears because his baby boy almost died. And that conversation that he has with him on the front porch, so beautiful. That was one of the moments that I teared up. You know, when he tells him, his voice cracks and he tells him, "I'm proud of you." That hit hard. Yeah, you know, and he tells him like something so important that we should all remember, that it really doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. What matters at the end of the day is the choices you make, the decisions you make, how you approach. We're all going to have problems. We're all going to have daily struggles, but what matters most is what you make of those moments, how you decide to get out of conflicts, the choices you make to make your life and those around you better every day. Cal is pretty much outcast in the movie at some point because of a lie, I guess, that Lex Luthor weaves against Superman. I'll get into that in a bit because it's not really a lie, but when he manipulates information that he finds at the fortress, everyone goes against him. And of course, you know, I know some people had issues with this whole immigration thing, but it's quite silly. Superman is an alien. So yes, he is from outer space, but he was raised as a human. And I thought that moment that he brought up with Lex was so important, because even though his blood is Kryptonian and his physical structure is Kryptonian and he's not physically human, the way he was raised, the way he feels, the way he acts, the choices he makes are all based on human emotions. And that's what makes him as much of a human than the next guy. And I thought that message was so beautiful, that what makes you human is the ability to love, to make mistakes, to learn, right? To improve yourself every day. Yeah, that moment got me teary-eyed too when he said that to Lex Luthor. And honestly, I felt at that moment, Nicholas Hoult, I don't know if he intended that for the character, but I felt that Nick got emotional when he said that to him. Like yes, there was anger and frustration on his face, but his eyes were like so hurt and almost in tears when he said that to him. Like, you know, and we know that Lex Luthor has his own backstory with, you know, in some iterations he has an abusive father, in some iterations it's the mother that's abusive. While Lex, you know, has always been a rich kid, he's had a lot of emotional and psychological struggles in his past. And that must have hit a chord, you know. Clark saying that to him. You got to basically put one foot in front of the other, and take it one day at a time. And even someone like him, someone as strong as him, can make mistakes. And that's what I found really interesting about this iteration as well, that, while Clark had been on Earth as a baby, he'd only been at this superhero thing for 3 years. And it's funny because my husband made a comment at one point during the movie. He kind of looked over at me and he's like, why is Superman like being weak? He's just letting his ass get kicked. And, later on there's a reveal that Ultraman is indeed a clone of Clark. And while he's being controlled by Lex through these machines where he's got this whole team, I thought that was hilarious, basically using him like a video game character, almost like, left 10 or up 6 or whatever. Yeah, they were doing all of these instructions on how to make him move, and the guy was just basically an empty vessel being controlled by all these machines. And I thought that detail of his eyes being a little off was interesting too, because it was clear that his own logic, reasoning, his consciousness was not there. He was just like an empty flesh bot, right? So yeah, the reason he was getting his ass kicked was because he was fighting almost a stronger version of himself, because he was just being controlled. And that moment when, he whistles for for Crypto and he comes in and starts chewing up the toys, I thought that was hilarious. And, that's when he truly showed his strength. As Adar was saying, yeah, you could sense that the whole movie he was holding back. Whenever he confronted anyone who was physically weaker than him, you could sense he was holding back his punches. He was holding back his speed. I'd say half of the movie, or maybe even 3/4 of the movie, he was focusing on saving other people, other animals, other creatures. He was even trying to save the alien. And it's a funny moment there, with Green Lantern just kind of kicking ass, and Mr. Terrific like telling him, basically you don't have to save everyone. And he's like, no, yes I do. Do we really have to do this? Do we really have to explode this creature from the inside? It's such a Superman thing. He's such a Boy Scout, right? He's like a good boy. And he's, just bent on like making sure that the creature doesn't land roughly on the ground. Like, please take care of him. Can't we like send him somewhere where he can, be studied? Like, he wants to help. That's his nature, to help. And it's not until, he realizes what's really going on and he's kind of allowed by the crowd to go full force, and they kind of publicly, openly apologize to him and realize he's not the bad guy, that he's like, okay, now I can do the Superman thing, right? And now I know what I'm going up against. It's, a controlled version of me, and I don't have to hold back. And that moment where he's fighting against the raptors and he starts spinning around and just like obliterating them basically, right? And he starts shooting at them with his laser eyes. That was just such a great moment. And he has like such an awesome stance at the end where he kind of like puffs up his chest and he looks so much like Superman and floating in the air. And that face was just really great. It gave me goosebumps, and yeah, I got a little teary-eyed with that too. It was just a really, really great moment for me in the movie. And also that reminds me of another awesome moment, which is really a Superman moment. There's a lot of little moments like that, but when he saves that lady from getting crushed by the building, and he shows up next to the car lifting the building, and then everything kind of collapses and she looks back and it's nothing but smoke, and you see him like elevating up through the smoke in the sky. That was such a beautiful visual moment, and it really hit my heart. I thought it was awesome, and yeah, it was a very fast-paced movie. This is one thing that Amari mentioned, my youngest. He wasn't expecting it to like move so quickly in the beginning, and I was telling him, yeah, it literally feels like the way it feels when you open a page on a comic book in a battle. They're in the middle of a battle and you're like, what the fuck is going on? I gotta keep flipping the pages to see what's going on. And the beginning is very fast paced. It does feel that way. But they're quick to explain where he's at in the story. I think you get a sense of him feeling a little lost in the beginning as well, and that was done on purpose, and he just starts finding his footing as a superhero towards the end. It feels like the Justice Gang had already been at this for a while, and while it's just Guy and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific, I can't wait to see the group get larger and larger, and I'm hoping we get more movies so we can build the actual Justice League. That moment with the Hall of Justice was so awesome. As soon as I saw the building, my husband was like, look, the Hall of Justice. It was really great. And let me see, Nathan Fillion, I thought he was a really good Guy Gardner. He was everything Guy Gardner needed to be. He was, a pompous asshole, and clearly the other two are kind of sick and tired of his bullshit, and because he's really full of himself, but he does get the job done. He's a Green Lantern. He takes his job very seriously. He's like, I'm here to do what I was told to do, and that's it. You can't move me from there. They all felt like they're very much, committed to their job as part of the Justice Gang or whatever. But yeah, they all have their own personalities. I really did love what we got from Hawkgirl. I hope we get to see more of her, because I thought that moment when she picked up that asshole from Baravia, I forget what the president's name was, and she just drops him. I'm like, whoa, she let go of the guy. She's like, I'm not Superman. You're an asshole. I'm going to let you go right here. I thought that was pretty interesting. Says a whole lot about her character. Mr. Terrific. Now, he's a whole nother ball game. Edie Gathegi, I think that's how, or Eddie Gathegi, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. I thought he was really awesome. He had very interesting moments with Lois Lane. I thought the chemistry between the two of them was really cool. I loved how they showed how intelligent he is, how capable he is, how, he was on par with Superman, kind of trying to really control the situation of the Rift, ripping basically the city and possibly the world, right? I just love those moments, and it was kind of funny to see him struggling physically with the whole thing, trying to rescue Metamorpho's baby. His tech, just those moments where he was fighting against the guys in Baravia holding that portal, that was just really cool. I loved his T-sphere. I thought that was really cool. Lois having to drive that and getting in there with the Daily Planet members, that was quite funny. Everybody, Cat Grant, you had Steve Lombardi in there, and Perry White, all of the actors. I thought they did an awesome job in those moments that they got on screen. While some of them were very, very short, I thought they just gave a personality to the movie that was very fun to watch. Maybe some of you are going to be like, oh, I don't understand why there had to be jokes in there. I mean, why not? Why does everything have to be so damn serious? We already live in a world where everything is so intense and so serious. This movie had to bring, in my opinion, some lightheartedness, right? Like I said, some hope for the future, something to look forward to tomorrow, yeah? And I feel like that's kind of what the movie did. It was interesting to see also Bradley Cooper as Jor-El. I was not expecting that. And Angela Sarafyan as Lara. I didn't know her name, but I did remember her from Westworld. And I think I've seen her somewhere else, but I was like, wow, so they're the parents? And that reminds me, the recording that Lex recovered from the fortress, I thought it was really interesting that they decided to basically put Jor-El as the voice of, these people are weak, take over the planet, whatever it was that Lex unearthed and said, he's our enemy, he's the alien enemy, you should not trust him. I thought that was interesting that they said that was an actual recording and it wasn't changed. It's just a portion of the recording that Clark didn't get to hear when he crash landed into Earth. right? So the intent of Jor-El and Lara was to make sure he basically populated Earth with the strong Kryptonian genes, and that these people were going to need his help, but that he kind of needed to rule over them. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Invincible, right? And the Voltrumites, that they kind of have to go explore different planets that are weaker than theirs and just kind of like leave their seed and populate, right? And take over. So it's interesting because while that choice might disturb some people, because we've always had this image of Jor-El being a compassionate, very caring paternal character, I don't think it's out of character for a Kryptonian, because that is literally what Kryptonians used to do. And it's one of the reasons why their planet deteriorated eventually, because it was the overuse of power, the overuse of resources from other planets and their own. The reason they started exploring other planets is because they overused their own natural resources, and they had to keep going to conquer other planets to get more, right? Isn't that the backstory of Krypton? And I thought it was interesting, and I gotta admit, it kind of like threw me off a bit. I'm like, wait, Jor-El and Lara sent him to do what? And yes, as a human, you would kind of recoil and be like, that's not okay. That's not the Superman that I knew and trusted. But if you really look at it from an objective perspective, that, like I said, that is what Kryptonians were doing. Jor-El realized that they fucked up their own planet and perhaps their approach wasn't the best, but why wouldn't he send a message of hope for his son to populate elsewhere and perhaps improve? Maybe the wording was a little bit off on his behalf, but perhaps improve the human population with his genes, because we are a weaker species. So maybe while that was his intent, the wording didn't come off so nicely. But what I think was important about that moment, and for us to realize that that's what they wanted Kal-El to do once he made it to Earth, that's where that conversation with Jonathan Kent comes in. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come to Earth to rule and populate. And he says that. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I'm here for. It's not my intent to rule over you and to, overpower all of you and spread my genes all over the earth. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to help. The first half of the message was come and be their guiding light, basically, right? Their strength, and help them be stronger. That's what he's here to do. That's what he wanted to do. That's the reason he came out in the open as Superman. As Jonathan Kent says, it's the choices you make, right, that make you who you are. You don't have to be that all-powerful Kryptonian taking over Earth. You can be whoever you want to be. If you want to be just a good guy that flies in and saves a squirrel and, saves the kids, and the kids look up to you, and you just want to help a human every day and, inspire people to help each other, to care for one another, then be that. Be that inspirational guy. Be that inspirational character. And that's who he chooses to be. And it's so beautiful at the end that, his peace of mind, his Zen moment, his moment of meditation is just lay in the fortress and be surrounded by footage of Ma and Pa Kent just loving him and embracing him and grounding him back to that feeling, that moment, that feeling of family, that thing that keeps you grounded. And whatever you may have in your life, maybe your family's not perfect, but whoever you have in your life that keeps you grounded, that makes you feel peaceful, that makes you feel loved, that's what you have to get back to at the end of the day with everything that's going on around. And that was his Zen, his moment of peace, his meditation. These are the people that love me. These are the people that raised me. And I got chills when the robots said, he just wants to relax with footage of his mother and father. And it wasn't Jor-El and Lara that came on. It was Jonathan and Martha Kent, right? Those are his parents. Those are his mother and father, the ones who gave him love, the ones who nurtured him, the ones who raised him. I just thought that was so beautiful, and it's not necessarily your biological parents. That not everybody's lucky to have good biological parents, but if you're a foster kid, and you happen to find good foster parents, that's who you cherish. Or if you're raised by a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a cousin even, or by a sibling, and those are the people that you love, those are the people that you hold on to, the ones that you fight for. For me, that was the message throughout the movie, and I thought it was really beautiful. And I also loved the robots from the fortress. I know the voices in there of Alan Tudyk and Klementieff. I know that Michael Rooker was in there as one of the voices, and also Jennifer Holland, James Gunn's wife. They were the voices of the robots. I thought they had their cool little moments. While I feel like an idiot for not recognizing Michael and Palm's voice in there, I did recognize Alan Tudyk right away because I love all of his voice acting. I love all of the characters he's ever voiced. I'm a huge fan of his. So as soon as he came up, voice number 4, I was like, yes, that's Alan. I thought they were really cool. I thought the designs were cool. I don't know. I thought they really existed in this world. It felt like they were characters that existed. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were done via mocap. So they were on set acting, and it was really cool. Yeah, the design of the fortress was beautiful too. And when they arrived at the fortress, I was mistaken to think, I don't know if I turned around and told you or I told Amari, but I thought the reason he got access to the fortress was because of the glasses he was wearing. And it turns out it was Ultraman, because yes, of course, he had the DNA of Superman to get in. Thought that was cool. I gotta touch up on Anthony Carrigan. I just mentioned him a little bit. I didn't realize he was gonna get like such big moments in the movie. I thought maybe he was just gonna show up in like the prison portal, whatever that's called, where he had all the metahumans. That he was just gonna be basically used to control Superman with kryptonite. And I thought it was, really interesting that he was being held captive and being controlled because they had his baby. I thought that was a very interesting moment and very emotional. And I loved Anthony Carrigan's portrayal as Metamorpho. As crazy looking as the character is, I felt his emotion, right? With his son, with the baby, and that moment when his thoughts switch and he's like, can you really help my baby? If I help you get out of this, and will you help me free my baby? I thought that moment, the acting through his eyes and through all of that makeup was crazy. I think he did an incredible job. Like you felt his emotion through his facial features, even with all that on him. He's been great in all the other stuff that we've seen him in. Tony and I watched the Gotham show, and we always enjoyed his portrayal of Victor Saz. Yeah, I thought Anthony did an incredible job, and it looks like he's joined the Justice Gang too. I'm, really looking forward to seeing more of him. I truly hope he's in other movies and other iterations and whatever sequels James Gunn has prepared for us. I hope he comes back as Metamorpho. I hope all of them come back. As much of an asshole as Guy Gardner is, I'd be interested in seeing him interact with other characters and Hawkgirl, and please give us more Mr. Terrific. Eddie Gathegi was incredible. Oh yeah, María Gabriela de Faría, I thought her as the engineer was incredible. She didn't die, did she? She just got knocked out. Her heart was still beating, so we could still get more of her, right, Adar? Yeah, the engineer is alive. She said, the girl at the end said she's knocked out, but her heart's still going, so she's alive. Yeah, the lady that played Eve Tessmacher was hilarious. I thought the moments with Jimmy were hysterical. Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, Mikaela Hoover. Can't wait to see her voice more of Chopper in One Piece. Yeah, we're waiting for that One Piece live action season 2. I know she's the voice of Chopper. I thought she was really cute as Cat Grant, Yeah, Skyler Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen. And yeah, Isabela Merced. I hope she comes back as Hawkgirl. Also, we were talking about, that moment between the Baravians and the people of, what was the place called? Jarampur? The kids there and everybody like kind of picking up sticks and stones to fight against an army of, prepared people with weapons and tech was very reminiscent of other things going on in the world right now. I don't want to, get into that too much on this channel, but it is reminiscent of things going on in the world right now. And that might have struck a nerve with some people. I get it. But it's a comic book, okay? It's not real, but it is based on real events in the world right now. There are going to be some factors that are going to feel familiar. That's the whole point. While these stories are fictitious, if they make you think and they make you feel like it's familiar with your real world going on, I think that's important because it makes us question our surroundings. It makes us question whether we're doing the wrong thing or the right thing. Where do we stand in life? What are the choices we're going to make? How can we help make life better, not only for ourselves, but for those we care about? Oh, I forgot Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord. It was nice to see him have his little cameo. I know that little trailer with Peacemaker, that too. We got to see some John Cena in there, some Peacemaker talk shit about Superman. Of course, I'm looking forward to the next season of Peacemaker, and it'll be interesting to see more Maxwell Lord interact with perhaps this Justice Gang and see what's going on with them. What else? I'm really trying to think. I touched upon the visuals, the music. Yeah, my nephew yesterday was commenting on the short that he felt that this Superman had a lot to learn from the Superman from Superman and Lois, Tyler Hoechlin. And I was explaining to him, well, yeah, this Superman's only been at it for 3 years, and Tyler's Superman has been Superman for a long time. He's been a father for quite a while. He's been through some stuff. He even died and came back again. So it's a little different for him. And of course, he would have some stuff to learn from him. I think this Superman has a long way to go to learn more stuff, to go by what his father, Jonathan Kent, told him, that you are the choices you make. That goes for everyone. So I'm interested in seeing David play Superman some more. I hope we get many more sequels and many interactions with other characters from the Justice League. I know everyone is wondering what's going to happen with Batman. At some point, he's got to meet up with him. I don't know if he's going to cast somebody else. I know he's expressed that Rob Pattinson's Batman is of Elseworlds, that it's a different universe. It would be cool to see the two of them interact, though. I'd be interested in that. And something else one of my sons said, too, that it clearly felt, the tone of this movie felt very different from the Matt Reeves Batman. That, when you saw Batman, you saw Gotham with its personality, the darkness of Batman, that, right? Perfect movie, perfect feel for Batman. And this one clearly feels like a Superman movie. It's got that feel, that optimism, that hope, that, hey, no matter what, I have to do good. I have to help people. How can I make your life better? It's very uplifting. It's a very uplifting, colorful, happy movie. So yeah, I think it's good that, we're drawing a line between the characters and making the difference between Superman and Batman. Because, while they might have some similarities, they are night and day. Literally. Yeah, anyway, I think that's all I got to say about this movie. If you guys think I missed anything, please comment down below. If you have any opinions on anything I've said, I'd be interested in hearing them. Yeah, if you've liked this video so far, leave a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, I do appreciate you. Take care, everybody. Be good to one another. Bye.